White Armour, a Stormtrooper's Life in the Galactic Empire. Chapter 1. Outer Rim Origins. You were born on the dusty outskirts of Kestrel City, on the Outer Rim world of Lothal. Before the Empire's banner draped every government building, it was a quiet place, one of wind-blasted plateaus and golden fields, where your parents worked a moisture farm and paid tribute to the local guilds just to survive the season. You remember the sound of the wind turbines groaning overhead and the hiss of sand through half-broken shutters. In those early years, there was no room for dreams, only routines. You didn't grow up hearing stories of the Jedi or the Clone Wars. Those were ancient myths told in hushed tones. What you heard more of were the labor shortages, the unfair taxation, the local gangs siphoning off what little food was stored in the community's silos. And then came the Empire. You were 10 years old when you first saw the shining hulls of Imperial starships descend like gods from orbit. TIE fighters screamed overhead, and uniformed men marched down the street with armor gleaming white like sun-bleached bones. There was a recruitment center set up within days. A detachment of Stormtroopers, pristine, silent, faceless, took up position around the square. For all the fear they instilled, they brought order. The raids stopped. Gangs vanished overnight. The local magistrate was replaced by a grey uniformed Imperial overseer who spoke of duty and peace. He smiled, but you noticed the Stormtrooper at his shoulder always had a finger on the trigger. The Empire, for all its tyranny, brought structure. Food rations stabilized, schools reopened. But those schools no longer taught free thinking. They taught loyalty, galactic history revised. The Jedi, traitors. The Clone Wars, a painful memory. The Emperor, savior of the galaxy. You learned to chant his name with perfect cadence, hand over heart, eyes forward. They tested you every year, academics, physical fitness, discipline. The boys who resisted were sent to labor camps. The ones who obeyed were fast-tracked for opportunity. You chose to obey. By the time you were 13, your parents had stopped protesting your interest in enlistment. The money the recruitment center paid for a confirmed cadet could feed them for months. It wasn't betrayal, it was survival. You wore their disappointment like a hidden scar, but you never looked back. You signed your name to the datapad and watched it be replaced with a serial number, TK 42167. Just like that, your old life was erased. The recruiters gave you a clean grey tunic, shaved your head, and handed you a datapad containing the Imperial Code of Conduct. Service before self, it read. Discipline before thought. You boarded the transport that night under a violet sunset and didn't say goodbye. The shuttle that carried you into your new life was full of other Outer Rim youths. Orphans, farmers, merchant sons, conscripts from crumbling trade worlds. There was a Twi'lek boy, pale blue, who spoke little basic, a girl from Salakimi with burns down her arms from a mining accident. No one spoke much. The Empire didn't encourage it. The shuttle windows showed the stars as you climbed out of atmosphere and bent into hyperspace. It was your first time seeing the galaxy beyond your home, and you felt weightless, important, terrified. Your destination was Prevspelt 4, one of the premier Imperial academies in the Mid-Rim. Not all cadets were sent there. Only those flagged as having high potential. You told yourself that meant you were special. In reality, it meant they needed cannon fodder to be better trained. Prevspelt was a cold world, constantly overcast, with wide concrete barracks and towering communication arrays that blinked red in the clouds. You were herded into formation upon arrival, bags confiscated, identity erased. Instructors in black uniforms walked the rows, barking orders with cold precision. No names, only numbers. TK 402737, one said, staring down a datapad. Lothal, Outer Rim, agricultural index low. You will serve the Empire better here than you ever would rotting in the dirt. You said nothing, as instructed. That was your first lesson. Discipline is silence. The second came quickly. Physical endurance training in the cold rain, your hands bloodied from climbing Durasteel ladders, your lungs burning in thin air. You shared your bunk with 3 others, each just as tired, just as silent. No bonding, no distractions. The barracks lights never turned fully off, only dimmed. You learned to sleep through the shouting, the alarms, the nightmares of boys crying for home. As you advanced through the basic program, you began to understand the scale of the Empire. Through classroom modules you studied the galactic map, core worlds like Coruscant and Chandrila, the military hubs of Eriadu and Anaxes, the industrial sprawl of Kuat and Fondor. The Empire's fleet was vast, tens of thousands of ships, stations, legions of troops, and the Stormtrooper Corps, an elite symbol. You weren't just soldiers, you were enforcers of order, living reminders of Imperial authority. You learned the history of the Clone Wars, not the real version, but the one the Empire approved. The Jedi betrayed the Republic, the Emperor survived their treachery, and from the ashes rose the Empire, one united, eternal government. You asked once about the clones, why stormtroopers weren't like them. Your instructor, a gaunt man with cybernetic eyes, replied, "Clones were built for war. You are built for rule." You spent 3 years at Prefspelt. Each year more were culled. Failures were reassigned to labor brigades, fuel processing facilities, or cannon fodder units. The top ranks were given the honor of true stormtrooper training. You made the cut. You were handed your first suit of white plastoid armor, not custom fit, but close enough. It was heavier than you expected. The helmet filtered toxins, modulated sound, and restricted vision. At first you felt blind, but soon it became your face. You trained in formation. You drilled with E-11 blasters, thermal detonators, squad tactics. You memorized the chain of command. You learned to march, to kill, to vanish into the ranks. The Empire didn't want heroes. It wanted obedience. And you gave it. Because to be faceless in a galaxy this vast was safer than being forgotten. Chapter 2. Arrival at the Academy. You learn quickly that the transport shuttles don't wait. Once assigned your first squad number, you're loaded into a heavy personnel lander, a dark grey beast designed for capacity, not comfort. Inside, the seats are bare durasteel. You and a dozen other recruits sit shoulder to shoulder, armor clinking, hands gripping magnetic belts for stability. No talking, no questions. The hum of the repulsors echoes in your helmet as the ship descends onto a new planet. This is the moment you stop being a trainee and begin your life as a true stormtrooper. The doors open to reveal the frozen tundra of the Carida system. Carida, the name spoken with respect and dread alike among Imperial cadets. Once a proud Republic military training center, now the Empire's most elite Stormtrooper Academy. Its surface is a harsh crucible of snow, wind, and regimented order. Towering mountains ring its capital base. Every building is the same. Angular, dark grey, sterile. Rows of red-lit barracks stretch from the landing platform toward a central command spire. Above, TIE fighters scream in formation drills, occasionally punctuated by the thunder of an orbital insertion exercise. This world was made for molding soldiers. You're directed by a black uniformed officer, an academy proctor, thin, aged and fierce-eyed, to your assigned barracks, TK Barracks 17D. The doors hiss open to reveal what you expected. Rows of standard-issue bunk beds, lockers stamped with trooper numbers, walls lined with holo panels displaying Imperial dogma. The heater hums constantly. Despite the freezing climate, you're expected to train outdoors in full armor. Every hour a test. The first weeks are pure hell. Carida is known for breaking spirits. Recruits disappear, sent back for reassignment, rumored to be shipped to penal colonies or simply gone. You see things now that Prefspelt never showed. Specialized drills in zero-G environments, long-range sharpshooter exercises with moving targets across glacial plains. You're trained in vehicle support, speeder bikes, ATST walkers, and occasionally full assault landers. You rotate between assault, recon, and demolitions training, building toward a final evaluation. You are also introduced to combat immersion chambers, simulated battlefields where you and your squad must react in real time to surprise attacks, shifting objectives, and complex tactical scenarios. You lose your first 5 sims. Your squad fails to cover blind spots. You hesitate during a hostage dilemma. You let emotion creep in. But under constant review, you improve. Your instructors don't praise you, they simply nod. That's how you know you're doing well. The food is synthetic and bland, the schedule unrelenting. Lights on at 4 o'clock, formation drills, combat sims, tactical briefings, blaster maintenance, physical endurance tests. Lights out at 22 o'clock, repeat. You sleep in short bursts, boots on, helmet by your side. You dream of commands shouted through static, blaster fire over icy ridges, the red eyes of TIE pilots flickering in your peripheral vision. You stop asking why, you just act. One morning, your squad is marched to the Judicator Dome, an enormous subterranean structure shaped like a half-buried hexagon. Inside is your first exposure to live-fire urban warfare simulations. The instructors have modified old Clone Wars-era separatist droids, reprogrammed for unpredictable resistance. They shoot real blaster bolts, non-lethal most of the time. You watch a cadet take a hit to the thigh and scream until the medics drag him out. The rest of you are ordered to continue. Pain is not failure, hesitation is. You are also exposed to the realities of serving the Empire across varied planetary environments: jungle, desert, urban, Arctic, aquatic, all simulated across modular terrain fields. You experience mock riots and civilian control drills. You are taught how to identify rebel tactics, sabotage networks, signs of sedition. Every lesson is accompanied by historical recordings, footage of the Clone Wars, the Siege of Mandalore, the Battle of Umbara. You're reminded of the Jedi's betrayal, of Order 66, of the Empire's rise from chaos. These aren't just lessons, they are gospel. Still, doubts creep in, quietly, when you're alone, removing your helmet in the silence of the refresher units. You sometimes wonder about the people you're being trained to subdue. The holograms don't show fear or families, they only show targets. But you remember Lothal. You remember how quickly things changed, how easy it was to swap one yoke for another. You never voice those thoughts. Troopers who question disappear faster than ones who fail. Your squad becomes your world. TK-98411, a sharp-eyed human from Raxus, becomes your second in command. TK-21970, a sarcastic Zebrak with a broken horn, watches your flank in every exercise. TK-71204, the quiet one from Maigito, is deadly accurate with an E11. You're molded together like interlocking Durasteel. One unit, one thought. The instructors call you cohesive. That's rare. Most squads are too competitive. Yours survives by trusting each other, and you are beginning to earn attention. One instructor, a former ISB intelligence officer with a prosthetic arm and eyes that never blink, starts pulling you aside. He doesn't give his name, just rank. Major. He observes your sims, analyzes your choices, asks questions no one else does. What would you do if your commander ordered you to fire on civilians? You hesitate. Follow orders. He nods. Good. But the best troopers know how to avoid those situations entirely. Learn to lead, not just obey. It's the closest thing to mentorship you receive. It stays with you. In your 3rd year at Carida, your squad is sent on a live capture exercise. It's a real-world mission. A suspected rebel courier is operating in the mining colony of Bandamir. You are inserted quietly. You track him for 3 days through slums and tunnels. When you apprehend him, blaster drawn, cornered in a utility shaft, he doesn't resist. He just says, "You could have been one of us, you know. We were all just kids once." You punch him, not because you're angry, but because it makes you forget the part of you that almost agrees. When the evaluation scores come back, your squad is in the top 5%. You are given formal Stormtrooper designation, Assault Corps, Division 501. a prestigious unit with active deployment in known hot zones. You are issued full armor with permanent serial plates. Your first post? Naboo. Peacekeeping and anti-rebel operations. On your last night at Carida, your squad gathers on the barracks rooftop. No one speaks at first. Then, the Zabrak, TK-2198, taps his helmet. To us, he says, to fire and function. You don't know what it means, but it feels right. The next morning, you leave the academy and the planet behind, and as the shuttle lifts off, you look out at the jagged mountains and whisper the only words you've dared speak freely in 3 years. I am the Empire. Chapter 3. Training the Body, Breaking the Mind. Every part of your life is engineered for function. There are no wasted movements in the Empire, no fat in its design. Every moment of your Stormtrooper training is another step in dismantling the person you were and assembling the weapon you will become. You are not taught to fight, you are taught to endure. Physical training begins at dawn, not the kind you remember from childhood, clumsy drills with farm tools or climbing broken stairwells, but the sort of discipline that wrings the weakness out of bone. You run obstacle courses modelled after old Clone Wars battlefield layouts, Geonosis trenches, Umbara shadow traps, ruined cityscapes mimicking Christophis. You climb walls with no grips, rappel blindfolded across barracks towers, carry wounded squadmates on your back for kilometers without water. Instructors walk the lines with electro-pikes. If you falter, you feel the sting. The purpose isn't just to make you strong, it's to break the part of you that hesitates. You are being conditioned to operate without questioning pain, fatigue, or conscience. The armor is your first cage, your first freedom, too. Full Stormtrooper armor weighs over 20 kilograms. White plastoid plates over a black 2-layer body glove. The neck seals tight. The helmet seals tighter. Inside you see through a polarized visor, hear only filtered audio, and speak through a vox modulator that turns your voice into something cold and anonymous. The moment you put it on, your breath becomes someone else's. Your name fades, you are a number, and when you speak, it is the Empire speaking. You sleep in that armor, eat in it, train in it. The only time you remove your helmet is under order, and only then to shave, to be examined, to be measured. You look at your reflection and barely recognize what's underneath. That's the point. Your days are filled with field exercises, hand-to-hand combat, weapons training. You become intimate with the E11 blaster rifle, standard issue for all Stormtroopers. Compact, efficient, capable of switching between stun and kill with a flick of your thumb. You disassemble and reassemble it blindfolded in under 15 seconds. You learn to compensate for the weight distribution, the recoil, the finite power of a Tibanna gas canister. The instructors remind you, the weapon is not just your tool, it is your voice. You also study specialized weapons. Thermal detonators, concussion grenades, anti-armor charges. You become fluent in tactics, formations, patrol routines. You drill until it's muscle memory, diamond formation in tight corridors, pincer formation for crossfire coverage, breach and clear codes in silent hand signals. Every situation has a protocol. You are not permitted to improvise. You're trained to follow. And yet the greatest battlefield isn't outside, it's within. You are introduced to the Empire's most subtle weapon, psychological reconditioning, indoctrination chambers, isolation tanks, subliminal programming played during sleep cycles, flash imprinting propaganda that burns across your corneas until you can quote the Imperial Security Bureau's loyalty codes by reflex. You don't dream anymore, not in the way you used to. When you close your eyes, you see the face of the Emperor, eternal and unblinking. You hear Tarkin's voice explaining the logic of fear. You watch endless feeds of rebel atrocity. Looped footage of sabotage, bombings, strikes against order. You forget nuance. You remember clarity. The Empire is peace. Dissent is chaos. In the barracks you learn the rules of speech. No complaining, no boasting, no speculation about the high ranks. Gossip is punished. Sympathy is weakness. You begin to see even your bunkmates as variables, measured not by their words but their kill-to-death ratios in simulated raids. You build trust only through consistency. One moment of hesitation in the field and a trooper might get you killed. Yet there is a strange intimacy in uniformity. When your squadmate watches your flank in a blaster storm, it doesn't matter what his name is or what species he was. He is your left flank. You are his shield. In that, you find brotherhood. On rest days, few and far between, you study galactic politics, starship classifications, rebel symbols. You are drilled on recognizing resistance movements across the galaxy, Saw Gerrera's partisans, the early cells on Lothal and Nonderon, the remnants of separatist loyalists. The instructors speak of them as terrorists, unclean, unstable, dangerous. Your job is not to understand them, your job is to eliminate them. Sometimes the instructors bring in guests, former rebels turned informants, paraded as proof of the Empire's mercy. They speak of how the rebellion abandoned them, how they found purpose in order. Their eyes flick toward the Stormtroopers lining the walls. You wonder if they believe what they say. It doesn't matter. Their words serve the Empire. You participate in live drills with scout troopers, snow troopers, and even shadow troopers. You see the elite, death troopers, silent and towering in black armor, training in closed domes. Rumor says they're bio-enhanced. You believe it. No one speaks to them. They don't speak to anyone. They kill like machines. You are told that someday, if you excel, you could be chosen for a specialist unit, flame troopers, riot control, shock troops. But the attrition rate is high. Most will remain standard infantry. Some don't survive training at all. One day, an explosion tears through a training dome. A cadet detonated a charge early. 6 troopers die. Their names are removed from the registry. Their bunks are cleared. No ceremony, no mourning, just order. The next morning, training resumes as if nothing happened. You step over bloodstains still smeared into the duracrete. You don't look down. And yet, despite the weight, the pressure, the brutality, something inside you burns with certainty. A belief that you are part of something vast, something that spans galaxies, that you are the line between order and chaos, that when you raise your blaster, it means something. It isn't until your final week of training that you are given your most important tool, the code cylinder. Small, sleek, slotted into your belt, it grants access to secure doors, encrypted data, and personnel systems. It identifies you to the machine of the Empire. With it, you are no longer just a soldier, you are part of the system. On your final night, you stand in the open yard in full gear as a Star Destroyer passes overhead. The air thrums with its engines. 1,000 lights glint against the metal sky. You watch it and wonder where you'll go. What world will be your assignment? What war will write your name in history? You don't speak. You don't need to. Because tomorrow you will be deployed. Tomorrow you are not just a trainee. You are a Stormtrooper. Chapter 4. Deployment and Discipline. Your first deployment takes you far from the frozen drills of Carida to the humid, overgrown moon of Tauri's third satellite. The Empire calls it Outpost TK-9. You call it what it is, a sweltering munitions depot buried in a jungle that never sleeps. It's not glorious, but it's real. You board the Sentinel-class shuttle at 300 hours with your squad, fully armored, gear prepped, and stomach knotted. The ramp lifts. The sky opens, the engines thunder. You're off-world. For the first time in your life, you're part of the living machine. The Star Destroyer Vigilant looms above the moon, a dagger of steel and power. You dock through its underbelly hangar, joining columns of troopers, crew, and officers that flood through pristine corridors like veins of a massive beast. Everything here is in motion. Officers bark codes and logistics to duty staff. Repair crews swarmed high-racks. Black-armored pilots, their faces hidden by rebreather masks, stalk past like silent predators. You keep your head forward and boots even. Discipline matters here. Every step echoes. You receive your assignment in a briefing chamber surrounded by holomaps of Sector Zedza 33-3. Your garrison is to provide perimeter control and supply security for the hyperfuel silos. Local reports speak of unauthorized settlements, a polite way of saying rebel sympathizers. No direct engagement unless fired upon. You nod. You're not here to question, you're here to enforce. Taris 3's jungle is thick and loud, its heat oppressive. The outpost rises like a cancer of permacrete and steel in the green. Dozens of prefab barracks, turbolaser turrets, power stations and a communications tower stretch skyward. You're assigned a rotation, 4-hour patrols, 6 hours rest, 2 for maintenance and briefings. It never changes. It's not meant to. You learn the routine of the garrison quickly. Wake, armor on. Calibrate your E11, report to sergeant, patrol the perimeter. Watching for movement in the trees, scanning for signs of sabotage. You memorize the outpost layout, the blind spots, the rhythm of the sensor arrays. You know when the sentry drones sweep, when the TIEs do their recon run. When someone's late to shift, it's noted. The sergeant logs everything. Everything? Inside your barracks, you and 24 troopers share space like cargo. Everything is white, sterile, silent. Helmets line the wall. Armor racks stand beside bunk beds like sentries. Conversation is minimal. Most of it is status-based. Zone 4's mines are stable. Laser Fence 3's beacon was flickering. TK 66,422 was reassigned after questioning the order to detain civilians. The lesson is always the same. Think less, obey faster. When you're off shift, you clean your gear. Maintenance is religion. A carbon-scalded blaster is shameful. A glitch in your HUD due to a loose audio relay, failure. You keep your armor polished, not for pride, but to reflect the Empire's strength. Dirt is weakness. Imperfection is disloyalty. It is not about looking human. It is about looking uniform. Yet the monotony wears on you. Out here, far from the central stars, the quiet is loud. Some troopers crack. You see it in the ones who stare too long at the jungle, in the trooper who hesitates when a child runs through the perimeter during a supply drop. He doesn't fire, he just stares. Next day, he's gone. Reassigned, the officer says. No record left behind. You remember what you learned at Carida. The uniform is armor for the mind as well. It's easier to act when you cannot see the eyes of the man you're shooting. It's easier when you're not allowed to ask why. And yet, not all is routine. One cycle, your squad intercepts a distress beacon from a downed supply freighter in Quadrant Z9. You are deployed by speeder to secure the wreckage. The jungle presses in as you approach the crash site, a smoking carcass of twisted metal and scattered crates. Blaster burns mar the hull. Inside, you find bodies. Not rebel, not civilian. Imperial. A scouting team cut down at close range. The data core is missing. Your sergeant calls it piracy. The major from base says it's insurgency. But you see footprints leading into the brush, burned foliage from thermal charges, traps set along retreat paths. This wasn't desperation. This was planning. The following week, you're told to increase perimeter scans. You're issued thermal images. You begin escorting supply convoys. The garrison's mood shifts. Tension builds. You patrol with your finger closer to the trigger. At night, when the rain pours and visibility drops, you swear you hear things moving just beyond the sensor grid. Shadows, whispers. You still sleep in your armor. One night, during a late rotation, you spot a silhouette beyond the laser fence. A humanoid figure. Small, moving fast. Your squad activates searchlights. You give the warning protocol. No response. The figure turns to flee. Your sergeant orders fire. You and 2 others open up, red bolts lancing through the dark. The figure drops. You find him minutes later, a boy, maybe 12, burned tunic, empty hands, no weapons, no ID, just wide, dead eyes. You're told he was part of a rebel smuggling ring, that his death saved lives, that he was probably carrying a thermal detonator. You clean your blaster in silence that night. Weeks pass. The jungle gets quieter. Patrols increase. The local villages are relocated under Imperial protection. Your unit is rotated back to the Vigilant for refit. In the hangar, you stand in line as a quartermaster inspects your armor. He pauses, points to your chest plate. "Turn mark," he says. "Laser scarring? No, sir. Ashfall from the jungle," you reply. He nods and moves on. You return to your berth aboard the destroyer, where the lights are always too bright and the walls always too clean. You take off your helmet for the first time in 3 days. You stare into the mirror above your rack. Your eyes are sunken. Your skin is pale. You don't look like the farm boy from Lothal anymore. You look like everyone else. That's the goal. You recite the code aloud before sleep. Loyalty, duty, honor, obedience, order, above all. Because tomorrow you might be sent to Ryloth, or Mon Cala, or Jeddah, or Scarif, it doesn't matter where. You will go where the Empire sends you. You are the enforcer, the protector, the shadow. You are a Stormtrooper. Chapter 5. The Fire of the Rebellion. Your next assignment comes fast. The rebellion is no longer a whisper in briefing rooms. It's a blaze across the galaxy, and the Empire is mobilizing like never before. Star destroyers vanish from dry docks ahead of schedule. Sectors once considered peaceful are suddenly flagged for tactical lockdown. You hear it on encrypted comms, through intercepted holofeeds, even in the way officers walk, tense, clipped, no small talk. The Rebel Alliance is real, organized, and striking harder than anyone expected. You are deployed to Kashyyyk, the Wookiee homeworld, as part of Task Force or Rec 2. The official order states, containment and suppression of dissident activity. You know what it means. The rebellion has allies among the enslaved Wookiee population, and the Empire will not tolerate delay in extracting resources. You and 3 platoons are assigned to defend a key supply outpost near the Tree City ruins of Kachirho. Kashyyyk is a world of vertical warfare. Trees the size of starships stretch into the clouds, each layer of the forest harboring life more dangerous than the last. Your patrols wind through massive walkways and suspended platforms with only repulsor lifts between them. The canopy above traps the heat, the shadows below swallow sound. You don't breathe easy here. Rebel attacks come like stabs in the dark. One moment you're watching an empty trail of vines and rusted Wookiee tech, the next your squadmate is thrown from the walkway by an explosion you never heard. You learn to walk in pairs, you carry extra charges, you aim into shadows. You do not hesitate. You begin tracking enemy patterns, timing routes, coded sounds left in the trees. You come to respect their discipline. These are not random insurgents, they're trained. Some wear armor pieced from old Clone Wars gear, ARC Trooper vambraces, reprogrammed BX droid comarays, even Jedi scraps. Ghosts of the Republic reborn in fire. One night, while guarding a landing pad awaiting AT-AT deployment, your squad is ambushed. Blaster bolts cut through the air from elevated platforms. You fall to the ground, roll into cover, return fire. Your CUD flickers. Someone's jamming the local frequency. Your sergeant shouts commands, but half the squad is already down. You hunker with another trooper behind a collapsed cargo container. You see him shake, wounded, his white armor scorched and bleeding smoke. The Wookiee charge comes seconds later. Roaring figures with viberaxes and bowcasters. Your training takes over. You fire until your barrel glows. The air stinks of ozone and scorched fur. By the time the smoke clears, it's quiet again. 3 troopers remain. The pad is destroyed. The AT-AT shipment never lands. Back at the garrison, a field officer from Compror delivers a speech about duty. He reminds you that the enemy uses fear and chaos as weapons, that peace is built on sacrifice. He pins a campaign stripe on your pauldron for surviving. You say nothing. You say at attention, you do not remove your helmet. But inside something is shifting. You begin to see the rebellion not as animals or anarchists, but as something else. Dangerous, yes, but principled. You overhear rumors, an entire squad of death troopers ambushed and taken alive, an ISB relay jammed for hours while rebel slicers broadcasted their own feed into Imperial hollows, a Star Destroyer sabotaged from within. Even in the mess hall the mood shifts. Troopers sit quietly, eyes on trays. Everyone's thinking the same thing. If the rebels can strike here, they can strike anywhere. A few weeks later, you're redeployed to a location of high strategic value, Jeddah. You've heard of it, a sacred moon, once a Jedi world, known for kyber crystal harvesting. It's supposed to be quiet now, pacified, but the rebellion stirs, even here. You patrol the streets of Jeddah in full armor. The locals stare with hate in their eyes. You see it in elders leaning against crumbling walls, in children clutching each other when you pass. You're not a liberator, you're a warning. Graffiti is everywhere, rebel symbols, Jedi runes, slogans in basic and languages you don't even recognize. You're ordered to scrub walls, torch markets, arrest anyone out past curfew. You don't speak to the locals, you don't remove your helmet. And then, one day it happens, the kind of explosion that ripples through history. You're guarding an ore transport near the city's edge when the ground lurches beneath you. Dust and stone erupt from the skyline. Fire streaks across the upper levels of the city. Your comms are flooded. Tower down. Mass casualty. Multiple breaches. Lock it down. You sprint to reinforce the garrison, but there is no garrison, just rubble. An entire communications hub leveled by a single kyber-fueled explosive. Civilians scream. Troopers pull bodies from ash. Your squad mate finds the helmet of your sergeant still intact, but there's no head inside. The brass responds with fury. The civilian quarter is locked down, all exits sealed. You are ordered to sweep every home, search every temple, confiscate every data pad. When one man resists, a scholar, white-haired and frail, you're ordered to make an example. You hesitate, just for a second. Your commanding officer repeats the order, blaster raised. You follow it. Later, scrubbing the carbon scoring from your gloves, you try not to remember his face. Jeddah becomes a war zone. Star destroyers darken the sky. Detention blocks overflow. The garrison doubles its manpower. You see black armored figures in the alleys. Inquisitors, it's whispered. Enforcers of the will of Vader himself. And yet the rebellion doesn't die. It burns hotter. Holoish leak of a hidden rebel base. Whispers of senators defecting. A pilot caught with stolen Death Star plans. The fear you once spread begins to mirror in your own reflection. But you don't break. You adapt. Because you know this. The galaxy is chaos. The Empire is order. And if the cost of that order is your soul, then so be it. You are the line between darkness and anarchy. You are a Stormtrooper. Chapter 6. The Death Star and the End of Certainty. You always knew the Empire had secrets. Even back in training, rumors floated like vapor trails. Whispers of weapons capable of vaporizing fleets. Experimental dark side projects. Research stations hidden beyond mapped hyperspace lanes, but nothing prepares you for the day your orders route you to DS-1 Orbital Battle Station. No one calls it that, they call it the Death Star. You arrive by Gozanti-class transport, exiting hyperspace to see a metal moon suspended above Jeddah's remains. It is massive, too massive, larger than any ship you've ever seen, larger than most cities. It eclipses stars when it drifts past. The surface bristles with turbo-laser batteries, sensor dishes, and hangar ports big enough to swallow cruisers whole. The dish on its upper hemisphere seems to gaze outward like the eye of a god. The The shuttle docks in one of the many equatorial bays. You step out into polished durasteel halls flooded with sterile light. Officers move like clockwork. Technicians flit between consoles. Protocol droids issue navigational alerts. Everything runs with absolute efficiency. You're handed a new code cylinder, a squad designation, and an assigned sector. Command Deck 9C, External Security Detail. Your job is simple: patrol, inspect, report. But everything about the station is surreal. Its corridors stretch endlessly. Its lifts rise for minutes at a time. It has libraries, detention blocks, reactor chambers, and meditation vaults. You pass science officers who refuse to meet your eyes. You guard doors with biolocks requiring ISB-level clearance. You watch TIE fighters fly inside the station through retractable bay shields the size of city blocks. The air smells clean, cold, artificial, like war perfected. You learn the Death Star is not just a station. It is a doctrine, a belief, a weapon so powerful it will end rebellion in a single strike. That's what the officers say. Fear will keep the local systems in line, a commander lectures. Fear of this battle station. You say nothing, you nod, you believe. Then you hear what happened to Genta. You weren't there for the shot, but everyone talks about it. How the Superlaser destroyed the entire city in a single pulse, how the moon shook, how the rebellion went silent for hours afterward. No one dares question it publicly, but in the barracks you overhear murmurs. They said it was just a demonstration. That wasn't a precision strike, it was a genocide. You clean your rifle more carefully that night. The Death Star becomes routine. You learn its layers, its gravity wells, its scheduled jumps. You attend briefings about rebel infiltration. You're shown profiles: Jyn Erso, Cassian Andor, Saw Gerrera's remnants. You are told these people are terrorists. You are told they want to burn the galaxy down. And then it happens. Alarms wail, red lights flood the halls. You are mobilized to Hangar 327, where security teams are on high alert. Rebel spies, they say. A data breach, a stolen transmission. The corridor trembles beneath your boots as TIE squadrons scramble. Officers shout for lockdowns. You take your position at a bulkhead checkpoint and grip your blaster. Your heart pounds, not with fear, but with confusion. How could anyone breach this place? You hear explosions down the shaft, then silence, then an eerie calm. You're summoned to the muster hall. Officers in black uniforms stand in tight formation. Lord Vader arrives. You've never seen him this close. He is not a man. He is shadow given form. The breath machine, the cape like a spectre. His lightsaber burns red at his side, even when sheathed. He says nothing. He does not need to. That day, the Death Star moves. You feel the tremor as it enters orbit around Scarif. You're told the rebels have a base there, hidden in a tropical vault. You're told they'll be eradicated. You're told this is justice. The station fires again. This time, you see the transmission in real time. The surface of Scarif erupts like a dying sun. Shockwaves race across oceans. Cities vanish. You watch in silence as an entire ecosystem is erased. There is applause in the command deck. You remain still. You report to your post. You watch the data terminals. You wait for peace. But then, everything shatters. The rebel fleet arrives. They break through the blockade. The dish is repositioned. The archives are lost. You hear the panic in the voices of technicians. They've transmitted the plans. How? The tower was locked. We can't jam it. It's too late. You are ordered to battle stations. You run through the maze of corridors. You pass crushed bodies, collapsed supports, fires licking at the edges of perfection. The Death Star is dying. You don't understand. This was supposed to be eternal. You reach the shuttle bays. They're full. Escape pods are jammed. Alarms screech across frequencies. You see an officer, young, terrified, banging on a sealed door. You pull him away before it explodes. Then the countdown begins. You don't hear the blast. You become it. Chapter 7. Fragments and Fallout. When your consciousness returns, it is not to light, but to pressure. Weight against your ribs, a distant pulsing in your ears, and a soft, sterile chime. You open your eyes and see a white ceiling, its glow panels flickering. You try to sit up, but the strain rips through your chest like blaster fire. A medical droid chirps above you. Restoration at 42%. Thoracic damage stabilized, memory gaps expected. Its vocabulator is emotionless, but the message is clear. You survived the destruction of the Death Star. Only fragments remain in your mind. A docking corridor, fire, pressure, screaming, vacuum, then darkness. Later, they tell you that your squad's compartment was blown clear of the main station just before the core breached. One of a dozen sections ejected by emergency containment fields. You were picked up adrift 6 standard hours later by an Imperial patrol ship from the Tyrant, its scanners crawling the Yavin sector for wreckage and survivors. The Tyrant becomes your new base of recovery. It's a Dreadnought-class heavy cruiser, older, slower than the sleek Star Destroyers, but still packed with command decks and transport bays. You are one of 43 survivors from DS-1, out of a crew that numbered over 1 million. They keep you isolated at first. ISB officers visit daily, recording your statements. Did you see the breach? Do you know how the plans were stolen? Do you suspect treason? Every answer is weighed for truth. You stick to what you know. You repeat it clean. You are not executed. That is reward enough. You're reassigned to the 501st, the elite Stormtrooper Legion, personally overseen by Darth Vader. Your armor is repainted, still white, but with a blue trim along the pauldrons and greaves. The insignia is sharp, the expectations sharper. You're briefed before every mission by an officer in grey, often flanked by a black-cloaked figure whose presence chills every molecule of the air. Morale among the Outer Rim systems has collapsed, your officer says during one debrief. The rebellion's strike was symbolic. It emboldened sympathizers. Our objective is to remind them what the Empire represents. Your first mission with the 501st is on Nixor, a high-gravity world where resistance cells have hijacked an orbital relay. You drop from orbit in a Delta-class assault shuttle, boots slamming into black rock, air thick with magnetic static. There's no negotiation, no detainment, only objectives and fire. You sweep the outpost. The resistance lasts 12 minutes, no prisoners. This is how it continues. You jump from world to world, enforcing compliance with precision and fear. Sometimes you're chasing whispers, holo pamphlets from Mon Mothma, smuggled gear stamped with the Phoenix crest, or lists of rebel sympathizers encoded into astromech memory cores. Other times it's worse. You remember cleaning blood from your chest plate after the raid on Spindar. The civilians hadn't run. You didn't wait for orders. But there are moments, brief, haunting, when doubt flickers. Like the child who tried to shield his sister during a detainment. Like the Twi'lek elder who looked into your visor and said, "You were once like me." Like the datapad recovered from a rebel bunker, full of intercepted Imperial orders, orders you'd followed, rewritten in context you were never allowed to see. You try not to think about those. Inside the 501st, you don't speak unless ordered. You maintain your armor twice as often. You eat standing, sleep lightly, and wake before alarms. The barracks are like morgues, quiet, cold, efficient. You never see the same face twice, and that's intentional. You are not brothers here, you are weapons. Darth Vader boards the Executor, and suddenly your deployments become sharper, tighter. You are never told where you are going until you drop. The fleet moves with singular fury. You hear about the events on Hoth, about the trap at Bespin. You are not part of those missions, but the name Skywalker begins to echo through corridors like a phantom. You begin to see changes in the galaxy. Recruiters are working faster, Conscripts from mid-rim colonies flood into training. Clones are long gone now. You haven't seen one in years. New Stormtroopers are younger, less precise. You are made a squad leader not because you wanted to be, but because you survived. That alone earns command. You begin to train the new ones. Drills on comm discipline, trigger discipline, posture. You correct their aim, strip their gear for them, remind them not to flinch under fire. They respect you, or fear you. You're not sure anymore. One night, deep in hyperspace between jumps, a junior trooper sits beside you in the mess bay. He's quiet. He finally asks, "What was it like? The Death Star?" You look at him for a long moment. You think of fire, of the command tower collapsing, of the orders shouted through static, of the moment you knew you were dying, and the next moment when you weren't. It was supposed to make the galaxy afraid, you say. And did it? He asks. You don't answer. You finish your ration pack. You return to your bunk. You dream of nothing. The next day you're deployed again, this time to a moon with no name, a supply station, reports of rebel scouts. You carry your blaster. You give the commands. You lead the charge. Because there is still a war to fight, and you are still a stormtrooper. Chapter 8. Echoes of order. You feel it before anyone says it. Something in the tension of commands, in the tightness of schedules, in the silence between debriefings. The Empire is preparing for something massive, larger than a crackdown, larger than Scarif, Jeddah, even the Death Star. You can feel the weight in the hull plates of every Star Destroyer in the fleet. And then you're told the Emperor himself is overseeing the construction of a second Death Star. The announcement is made without ceremony, just a secure holotable briefing aboard the Executor, where a gloved officer outlines your deployment to the forest moon of Endor. There's no room for awe, no celebration. You remember the last time someone called a battle station a symbol of peace. This time, the Empire doesn't even bother pretending. It's not a deterrent, it's vengeance. You arrive in orbit with the full weight of the fleet. The half-complete superstructure of Death Star 2 hangs above Endor like a shattered crown, its core exposed to space, scaffolding trailing into vacuum like broken veins. You see TIE squadrons swarm around it constantly, escorted by Star Destroyers and broadcast relays. The Emperor is on board, Vader too, and now, so are you. Your unit is stationed on the surface moon, designated Sanctuary Base. It's meant to be a shield generator outpost, but you know better. It's a choke point. The entire facility is built as a layered defense, trenches, bunkers, towers, and patrol paths coiling through thick forest. You've fought in jungles before, but this is different. The canopy muffles everything. The trees are massive, ancient, and tangled. Visibility is terrible, and it smells alive, too alive. You brief your troopers, then split the patrols. Everything is by the book. Then things go wrong. It starts with a disabled speeder. You find the remains of 2 scouts, armor intact, throats cut clean, not rebel style. Then the traps begin. Nets, logs, crude but effective. One trooper crushed, another dragged screaming into the undergrowth. You find nothing when you follow. Only tiny footprints and piles of bone. Then the ambushes start. They're small, fuzzy, primitive, and fearless. Ewoks. You'd laugh if you weren't bleeding. They coordinate, they use terrain, they chant. You lose 3 men in a glen filled with sharpened stakes and rocks dropped from tree platforms. You shoot into the foliage, into the dark, into nothing. You order flamers, and the flames come, but it doesn't matter. They don't stop. You fought rebels, mercs, even Wookiees, but you've never fought anything that enjoyed war like this. Then the rebels strike, not sabotage, not infiltration, a full assault. From the trees and the glades, from the hills, using local support and captured armor, you hear the roar of walkers exploding. You hear the Death Star's shield generator breach. You hear someone screaming on the comm that the fleet is under attack, and it's not just any fleet. It's every fleet. Above you, the sky cracks with fire. Ties fall. A Moncal cruiser slams into a Star Destroyer. Your orbital feed dies in static. No orders come. No retreat given. You dig in. You fire until your blaster overheats. You toss it and pick up another. You shout for your squad and realize no one's left but you. And then silence. Later, how much later you don't know, you wake beneath a collapsed tree, armor cracked, leg twisted, blood crusted to the inside of your helmet. You crawl. You crawl through the remains of a trench, past troopers you knew, some still clutching weapons, some missing limbs. You crawl until you reach a clearing and see the shield array gone. Only smoke now. Above, the Death Star hangs still in orbit, and then it erupts. A light you'll never forget, even through scorched visor lenses. A cascade of energy and debris, the heart of the Empire, gone in a heartbeat. You don't feel fear. You feel nothing. They find you a week later, scavengers, maybe ex-Imperials. They strip your gear and leave you in the mud. You crawl again, you don't know how long. Eventually, a transport picks you up, an old Victory-class ship with no insignia. It doesn't matter who they are, they give you food. They don't ask questions, you stare out the viewport, still in armor. The war is over, and you don't know what to do. Your number is gone from the registry, your unit disbanded, the chain of command vaporized along with the throne. All that remains is you, and the sound of your own breath inside the helmet. Chapter 9. After the Empire. You don't remove the armor right away. At first it's practical. Your uniform, your shelter, the only protection you have left. But as weeks turn into months, it becomes something else. A skin, a shell, a memory. You patch the chest plate yourself, clean the sand from the joints, tune the helmet's filters even though no one's barking orders into your comm anymore. You aren't just wearing it, you are it. You drift between systems in the Outer Rim, first Svivren, then Molavar, then backwater moons whose names don't even show up on star charts. No one questions your presence. Some planets still honor the Empire, others spit when they see the armor. You keep your helmet on either way. There are no orders now. The HoloNet broadcasts collapse after Endor. Imperial governors declare themselves rulers, moths fighting for scraps. The New Republic announces its formation on Coruscant. You don't believe it at first. The thought that the Senate has returned feels like a dream from another life. You take work where you can find it. Security, guard duty. On worlds like Akiva and Concord Dawn, no one asks about your past. They just see the rifle, the stance, the efficiency. You still sleep lightly. You still clean your blaster nightly. You still recite operating protocols in your head when it's quiet. You don't know how to stop. One day, a man at a cantina on Salu Kami asks what legion you were with. You say 501st without thinking. He goes quiet. You see the way his jaw tenses. He finishes his drink and leaves. Later that night, your door lock is fried and someone leaves a thermal detonator on your cot. It doesn't go off. Warning only. You're gone by morning. You travel further into the Rim. The New Republic expands like a tide, liberating systems, hunting warlords, reprogramming droids and starports. You see propaganda everywhere now. Mon Mothma's face in holo ads, victory speeches playing on broken terminals. One day, you catch a glimpse of the name Armitage Hux in a whisper. A boy from the old regime now building something new. But it's not your fight anymore. You end up in a mining colony on Ord Radimer. It's not glamorous, the shifts are long, the air stale, but the credits spend. You work the cargo lanes, load spice and fuel cells, fight off the occasional pirate raid. You stop wearing the full armor. Too many eyes, too many ghosts. But you keep the helmet stashed in your locker, just in case. You think you're invisible, just another ex-Imperial drifting in the void. Until one night a boy asks if you were a Stormtrooper. You don't answer. He says, "You don't walk like a miner." You stare at him. He doesn't flinch. My brother joined the rebellion, died at Scarif. The boy watches you like he's waiting for an apology, but you don't give it. Instead, you walk outside to the edge of the colony where the stars burn cold over black mountains. You remove your helmet. The air is thinner here, sharper. You close your eyes and breathe. You remember Carida. You remember the first time you held a blaster, the first time you marched in formation, the first time you killed. You remember the orders, the indoctrination, the promises. You remember the sound of silence after Endor. You wonder if there was ever a real choice. Some days you consider reaching out to the New Republic Amnesty Program. They say you can register, renounce, maybe even start over. They offer rehabilitation, even housing for those willing to speak out, but that would mean letting go. And you're not sure who you are without the armor, without the voice in your ear saying, advance, fire, secure the zone. You've been many things, a number, a recruit, a stormtrooper, a survivor. Now, you're something else, something undefined. The galaxy is changing. You hear whispers of another threat growing in the unknown regions, remnants of the Empire, shadows with crimson armor. You wonder if they'll come looking for you. You wonder if you'd go. Chapter 10. Legacy of the Mask. You never thought about legacy when you were young. Not when you left your homeworld, not when you were handed your first blaster, not when you stood at attention with 1,000 others beneath the red banners of the Empire. Back then your future had no shape. It was orders, routines, fire drills, and discipline. Legacy was something for senators and Sith lords, not soldiers. But now, sitting alone in a rusting storage bay turned shelter on the edge of the galaxy, you can't help but wonder, what did it mean? Your armor is stacked in a corner. You haven't worn it in months, but you keep it polished. The helmet rests atop the pile like a skull from a forgotten war. When you first put it on, it made you feel invincible, anonymous, part of something grand. Now you see it for what it is, a mask, a cage, a lie wrapped in white plastoid. Yet still, you hesitate to throw it away. You sometimes cross paths with others, former squadmates, bounty hunters who once wore Imperial ranks, defectors who joined the resistance. You talk little, but in the glances and silences between you, there's recognition, a shared past, though rarely acknowledged. Some hate what they were, others still believe. Most are like you, adrift. The galaxy moves on, planets rebuild, the New Republic holds, falters, reforms again. The Empire becomes legend, then myth, then forgotten history in some sectors. Kids play Stormtrooper and Rebel in the dust, not knowing the weight behind the names. You once saw a Hollywood drama portraying Stormtroopers as bumbling fools, missing every shot, tripping over crates. You didn't laugh, you just turned it off. Lives, in datapads and archives. Your name, or rather your number, listed among the thousands deployed at Hoth, Scarif, Endor. You wonder if someone will ever piece the history together. If some historian on Chandrila or Hosnian Prime will trace the patterns, compile the losses, and try to understand what the Empire truly was. Would they see you as villains, victims, tools, or simply forgotten? You sometimes imagine what it would be like to tell your story, not in a bar, not to a curious child or suspicious captain, but to history itself. To stand in front of a tribunal or a journalist or a droid recorder and say, this is who I was, this is what I did, this is what it cost. You think about the clones long before your time. You studied them in training, tales of valor during the Clone Wars, of Jedi betrayal and loyalty unto death. They were bred for war, trained from infancy, and yet by the time you served, they were nearly all gone. Forgotten relics of a different empire. What were you then, if not their echo? And what will come after you? You've heard whispers in the unknown regions, fleet regroupings, projects called Final Order, armies growing in the dark, built from the shattered pieces of what you once called truth. You don't know if it's propaganda or prophecy. You only know that war never ends, it mutates. But for now, you remain still. Your days are quiet. You help rebuild irrigation channels on a farming moon. You barter for power converters and spare parts. You listen to traders tell tales of Jedi returning, of Mandalorians reclaiming their world, of Imperial warlords battling for dead systems. You nod. You remember. Sometimes you put the helmet on again, just for a moment. The inside is silent now. No HUD, no command lines, no blinking alert. Just your breath, just memory. And in that silence, you realize your legacy is not the mask. It's the choice to take it off. You step out into the sunlight, and for the first time in a long time, you walk without armor.